Here's Linda sharing God's heart.
Hello, everyone. In the second and third verses of Psalm 27, David wrote, "When the wicked came against me to eat up my flesh, my enemies and foes, they stumbled and fell. Though an army may encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war may arise against me, in this I will be confident." In these two verses, David described several ways in which malfunctional wicked enemies and foes, or even armies, came against him in various scenarios. The wicked are false in their feigned friendliness, and the Bible dictionary describes them as being dysfunctional. They either threatened David or pitched their tents close by to encroach upon him later, or they opposed him because they wanted to annihilate. On the one hand, David declares that his heart will not give these wicked people or their plots any time or attention. He would rather remain confident in God and be bold by finding his security in the Lord and remain fearless. The other reason why David did not care about their schemes was that he knew that his dysfunctional attackers would become weak and trip or be unsuccessful in their mission, even to their own detriment. When Daniel was thrown into the lion's den, he experienced much of what David described concerning his dysfunctional, wicked enemies. Daniel was among those taken to Babylon from Jerusalem in Judah as a young nobleman. He lived long enough to serve 5 kings and is said to have died in his 80s. In the book of Daniel, chapter 6, we read how he landed in the lion's den during the reign of King Darius the Mede, who had appointed 3 chief overseers to manage his large kingdom successfully. The king, knowing that Daniel was honorable, recognized his excellent spirit and considered putting Daniel in charge of his whole realm, including the other 2 chief overseers and 120 princes. These chief overseers and princes couldn't overcome their jealousy because Daniel seemed to be untouchable. And on top of that, they rejected him and still considered him an outsider. Daniel was a thorn in the flesh to the corrupt Babylonian deep state. He had lived in Babylon for about 70 years, and they just had to remind the king that he had been taken captive from Judah so many years before. They were obsessed with devising a scheme to destroy Daniel. Supposing they had an ironclad plan, they buttered King Darius up as they thronged him, deceitfully flattering him as they stroked his ego to manipulate him. They convinced Darius to establish a decree that would deal with the Daniel problem forever, because the lions were supposed to devour him. The decree was that anyone who asked anything from anyone other than the king for the next 30 days would die in the lion's den. Their plan succeeded, and the king, Darius, signed a decree that could not be reversed. Despite knowing exactly what they were up to, Daniel went home and carried on with his custom he had since early days, which was to open his windows and pray towards Jerusalem 3 times a day. When they gleefully informed the king that Daniel had disobeyed the decree by praying to the Lord, Darius realized what had taken place and was very displeased with himself. By sundown, he had not found a way to reverse his decree as far as Daniel was concerned. Daniel's enemies and foes pressured the king to fulfill his own decree. And when Daniel was cast into the lion's den, the king assured Daniel, "Your God, whom you serve continually, he will deliver you. That is so encouraging to me. After a drawn-out, sleepless night, the king hurried to the lion's den early the next morning and said, "O Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to deliver you from the lions?" Daniel could very happily reply, "Oh yes, king, I have not wronged you or my God." And so Daniel was taken out of the lion's den, completely unharmed, because he believed in his God. And then the king gave the command that Daniel's accusers, their children and their wives, should be thrown into the den. Before they even hit the ground, the starving lions overpowered them and broke all their bones in pieces. And just as with David in Psalm 27, Daniel's enemies and foes stumbled and fell right into their own trap in the lion's den. And now I believe that this is God's heart for us. As David and Daniel were careless in that they couldn't care less about the accusations and attacks of the enemies, I desire you to be careless concerning the attacks of your enemies and foes. Yes, carelessness can negatively imply that someone is negligent or reckless, forgetful, but it is wisdom to remain carefree and to allow me to continue to rid you of pain, shame, and guilt. My son endured and overcame. Please listen to these words carefully. He endured and overcame every rejection, every sorrow, every grief, every affliction, every contempt, every oppression, every accusation, every trauma, and every effect from any form of abuse, as well as the judgment against you, so that you would be free. The entrance of my word brings light. According to Mark 4:19, it is not my plan for the cares of this world to choke my word that brings light to your path. I want you to remain free of care, free of anxiety, and free of distraction from me, because I keep my promise to you and never, ever will leave you, forsake you.